for coming tonight. We hope tonight you will learn a lot about what the two candidates of the 10th district in Bristol County think about the different food system issues. So for everybody, the structure, as Liz said, we are going to ask food system questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and then we will move on to the next question. At the end, if you put your questions in the chat, please keep in mind this is about the food system, so try to keep your questions related to the food system in the chat if you want to ask the candidates questions at the end. This is being recorded. We will share this recording with the registrants. It is also being live streamed onto Facebook. So we hope you enjoy the evening. With that said, Liz is going, as she said, is going to be the timer. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and it'll be a little timer on her page, on her picture there. And then when the 2 minutes occur, there'll be a little sound, and the candidates will finish up their thoughts, and then we'll move on to the other candidate or another question. So with that said, candidates, are you ready? Okay, fantastic. All right, for the first question, everybody's starting to know this one. So the question is, please tell us about yourself and why you are running for the office of the State Representative 10th District in Bristol County. Mr. Sylvia, let's start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Christine, to you and Liz and the Marion Institute for hosting this important forum on food insecurity and for your focus on food equity in this region. No one should go hungry. As a community, it's our shared responsibility to care for each other and to provide equitable food system for all. About me, I grew up in the district and raised my family here. I understand the challenges that people in our community are dealing with on a daily basis, primarily increasing cost of living, and that's everything from housing to childcare to healthcare and food. We're all feeling the impact of these increased costs in our daily lives. And as your state representative for the 10th Bristol District, I will focus on these issues and others facing the district. I'll be a strong advocate for state aid to support schools, fire and police, and transportation. I'll fight for our local fishing, tourism, and cranberry industries and for small businesses. And I'll fight for our environment and against climate change. And I'll always protect our fundamental rights, among them workers' rights, reproductive rights, and LGBTQ+ rights. I'll be ready to go on day one. I bring with me my immense energy and enthusiasm for our communities. I'll bring with me my state, municipal, and private sector experience and the relationships that I've built throughout my career. But most of all, and most importantly, I'll bring the voices of our district with me to Boston. Throughout my life and career, I've carried the values that I was taught growing up here on the Southcoast with me. We all believe in hard work and showing compassion for each other, and we believe that our strength and success come from working together. It's those values that will guide me as your next state representative. We know what the challenges and opportunities are. We know what needs to be done. Now it's time to get to work. I'll wake up every morning fighting for this district with a sense of urgency and guided by our values. Thanks.
You're muted, Christine.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Mr. Pyers, we'll move on to you for the same question. Tell us about yourself and why you're running for the office of the State Representative of the 10th District in Bristol County.
Thank you very much for having me today. I must say I truly appreciate and respect the work that you're doing as an organization, the Marion Institute. Christine, Liz, thank you for this forum and putting this together. I know it's a lot of work. My name is Joe Pyers, long-term resident, lifelong resident of the Southcoast, born and raised in New Bedford. Son of an immigrant father and mom, came to this country in the late 60s. So I was the 70s child, and I had great parents, family, good support. Watched them work hard and achieving the opportunities that the United States had to offer, the American dream, and that's the main reason why they came here. For me, running today is to help affect positive change. We've seen a lot of the challenges and issues that residents of the South Coast, and particularly the 10th Bristol, of having to deal with. Some priorities have been put above others, and I'm advocating that we take a hard look at some of the policies in place and look for positive reform that puts the needs of our community first. From seniors to veterans to the middle class, young adults who are trying so hard to start off their lives, facing with unattainable challenges that keeps them from achieving their American dream, keeps them from achieving their goals. My goal, God willing, if I'm elected, is to really start bringing back our quality of life, our standard of living that we all fought so hard, our ancestors fought so hard to provide for us. Today, I feel blessed that I'm able to own a small business. I have 62 employees. And every day, I'm witness to some of the daily challenges, as simple as buying food. And now, after doing all the research, quality food is equally important. Everything from paying your daily expenses to your household bills to energy costs, no matter where you look, we're faced with a challenge. And if these challenges aren't corrected, I'm looking at our future as not being as thriving and as robust as it should be. So I'm looking forward to this forum. I take a tremendous amount of pride, and I have a passion for local, buy local, especially local food. It's been a passion of mine. My mom passed away in 2009, and that led me to really research and try to understand, where is our food coming from? How is it affecting our health? And I dove into it, and I'm again
Thank you, Mr.
passionate
Pyers.
and looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a lot to discuss tonight, and we've got to a good start. So you know a little bit about the candidates now, and we're going to dive into some of those food system questions that we've been discussing. So the next question is, there are many inequities in our food ecosystem that are particularly impacting Black, Indigenous, and people of color, ranging from low wages and poor working conditions in the food system sectors to physical and cultural access to food. Please describe any plans for creating equitable access to the food system, such as individuals needing loans to become aquaculture and agricultural farmers, selling value-added products as part of the cottage industry, or owning a restaurant, but are denied because of structural racism. Mr. Pyers, let's start with you. You're on mute there.
Thank you. Excellent question. As a candidate, addressing inequalities in the food system is a priority for me. I would advocate for policies to increase and access to healthy food, local food for all, especially the underserved communities. This includes supporting initiatives to expand community gardens, urban farms, and farmers markets in the food. I had the privilege of looking at the data that's on your website and the supporting websites, and it was alarming to me to see that it is an issue right now with Asians, Blacks, different type of ethnicities that are being affected. And we need to provide a source of capability, ideas, so that food is not segmented to a certain population. Everyone has the right not only to food, but has the right to good food, healthy food. I would also work to ensure that local food producers receive the support that they need to thrive, including grants, technical assistance to make their products more accessible and more affordable. Additionally, I would collaborate with schools and institutions to integrate local food into their meal programs, promoting healthy equity, supporting local economies. By strengthening the partnership with the diverse organizations represented by the Southcoast Food Policy Council, we can create more equitable, sustainable food systems for everyone in the 10th Bristol District.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. I would ask the same question of Mr. Sylvia. Please describe any plans for creating an equitable access to the food system.
Thank you. There's no question that inequities exist within our food system. And I think it's important for our leaders to do much more to address these inequities through action. As state rep, there are a number of things that I would do. Engage with the Agricultural Equity Network to discuss their priorities and recommendations on how to address and equity in the food ecosystem. I would support and act promoting equity in agriculture, as Rep. Schmidt did, to establish a commission that will make recommendations on how to address critical issues such as access to healthy food, affordability, increasing wages, and expanding agriculture. With many living in food deserts, it will be important to provide benefits that allow the purchase of healthy foods. I'd support programming for elderly to receive food through delivery. I'd work with the Attorney General and others on price gouging through oversight in the legislature and directly working with the Attorney General. I'll help to promote more opportunities to bring in grocery stores by supporting zoning, grants, and other incentives, and work with Mass Save and the utilities to help drive down operating costs for grocery stores, including electricity. And I certainly will support legislation that addresses wage inequality and encourages the expansion of farming.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. We are going to move on to the next question. As of January 2024 this year, 1.1 million people were enrolled in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and the Healthy Incentive Program, or HIP, in Massachusetts. As of July 2024 this year, $2 million in HIP benefits were used, a 20% increase in dollars from July 2023, and the first time the program served more than 50,000 households in a month. How will you support the Healthy Incentives Program? Mr. Sylvia, let's start with you.
Thank you. The Healthy Incentives Program is a great initiative that lives up to its name by incentivizing the purchase of fresh and healthy foods that would otherwise not be accessible. I'll support budget priorities that include both SNAP and HIP, and where possible, find ways to increase funding. The HIP program is focused on providing local, healthy foods, which ultimately also will keep healthcare costs down, because people who eat healthy tend to reduce their risk of diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and other diseases that are affected directly from nutrition. HIP also supports local farmers that participate in the program, and that's had a very positive impact on our local economy. I do think additional funding will also enable more farmers to participate and to ensure we're providing more healthy food to families and seniors in need.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. I turn to Mr. Pyers and ask the same question. How will you support the Healthy Incentives Program?
Yes, I feel strongly about this, and there's the old saying that I have is that food is medicine, and eating the wrong food can not make you healthy. Eating the right food can prevent disease. As a candidate, I fully support healthy incentive programs such as HIP or SNAP as a vital tool for combating food insecurity in the Bristol district. These programs not only provide financial assistance to low-income families, enabling them to purchase fresh local produce, but it also supports our local farmers by increasing demand for their goods. I would advocate to sustain increased funding to ensure its long-term viability and impact. Moreover, I would work to expand outreach, educational efforts so that more eligible families are aware and can benefit from the program. After looking at your data, it's clear there is a major challenge. From 2019 at 20%, I can just applaud that the awareness, the education has probably increased, but also the need has increased. That now I see the data showing that 49% of the people are now on SNAP or HIP. And I believe there's still a significant amount of people who are eligible that still need to be made aware of and encouraged that this support is available. And if elected, God willing, I would be a strong advocate for this program.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. We will now move on to the next question. Many children in our schools do not understand where food comes from or the importance of healthy eating. Many of our schools rely on big industrial food companies that make prepared foods and cannot procure local food from our surrounding farmers. How will you support the Massachusetts Farm to School program and food literacy education programs to help our children make healthy and sustainable food choices and have culturally appropriate food choices? Mr. Pyers, let's start with you.
Thank you for this question. First, I'd like to bring it home as a personal story. My children over the years have watched me carefully really unravel food source, food quality, healthy food, and where our food comes from. I've always been an advocate for local farmers. I've taken the extra step and searched out many local farmers markets and tried to bring home the most freshest food. And doing that, they were educated indirectly by just watching. The old saying, lead by example. And today I can proud to say that my children are healthy eaters. And I think that needs to be carried out into the school system. Today, it's not about, it's really important that we have the ability to have food. It's really important that we have the choice to eat healthy food. I believe that Farm to School initiative is crucial for promoting food literacy among our young people. By connecting schools to local farms, we can provide students with access to fresh, nutritious food while educating them about where their food comes from. This program helps instill healthy eating habits early and fosters an understanding of sustainability, agriculture, and the more important thing, supporting local economies, buy local. Additionally, integrating farm-based education into the curriculum empowers students with the knowledge about nutrition, food systems, environmental stewardship, equipping them to make informed choices about their health and the planet's and the environment's well-being.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. Mr. Sylvia.
Thank you. Local farm to school initiatives support local farmers. They promote better nutrition. They provide for healthier and better tasting food and provide local foods that are culturally significant. And educating children at an early age about healthy eating and where that food comes from helps promote long-term healthy living and an appreciation for local farming. If elected as state representative, there are a number of things that I would do to support school to farm initiatives. First, support an act establishing farm to schools grants to promote healthy eating and strengthen the agricultural economy as well as food literacy. Ensure that local agricultural resources are supported in these programs for the 10th Bristol District. So making sure that we make that link with our cranberry growers and our fishing industry with our local schools. Work with the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources to find ways for school districts and municipalities to work with the agency to ensure that local foods get into our schools and that we educate our children about locally grown agriculture. Also, consider supporting ways for the Commonwealth and organizations like the American Farmland Trust and other agricultural associations and nonprofits to work together to expand school gardens and farm trips. And as always, I'll continue to be a big supporter for universal free lunch.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. And we move on to the next question. According to our 2021 Southeastern Massachusetts Food System Assessment, in a survey of 490 households, the most challenging food to get in food pantries was meats, seafoods, fruits, and vegetables. In the summer of 2023, food pantries across the region reported getting less food from their sources and yet saw an increase of people coming into the food pantries. How would you support a way to incentivize farmers and food establishments to donate food to food pantries and reduce food waste? Mr. Pyers, let's start with you.
Sorry about that. Thank you for that question. This past summer, beginning of the summer, I had an opportunity to participate in a food pantry in Fall River. I got emotional. And the reason why I'm saying this is as I pulled up, it's probably about a half hour to an hour before people started arriving, there were already hundreds of cars in line. And what I learned from that experience was it's not just what you would think in terms of low income. These were people every day, just like you and I, trying to figure out how they were going to cut corners. How were they going to, work within the system and yet still get by? It was heartwarming. And as a candidate, I can say I strongly support incentivizing food businesses, farmers, and donate surplus food, such as initiatives that can play a significant role in addressing these food insecurities while reducing food waste. I had the privilege of visiting with a local farmer here in Westport, and it happened to be about 2 or 3 years ago. That year, they had heavy rains. they suffered because they couldn't produce. In other years, they have excess. I would advocate for taxes on both sides to help them work through those difficult times, but also when they have more food than they can produce to, channel it, provide tax credits, deductions for businesses and farmers who donate to food banks, community organizations. Additionally, I would support development of infrastructure and logistics to make the donation process easier and more efficient, ensuring fresh, healthy food reaches those who need it promptly. Transportation, pickups, however we have to do it, there's a strong need, probably now more than ever. So I would definitely advocate to supporting any mechanism to make this happen.
Thank you, Mr. Pires. Mr. Sylvia.
Yes, thank you, Christine. I think there is a real opportunity here to provide needed foods and food variety to local pantries and source it from local farms and fishermen in our district and in our region. I think connecting our farmers in the fishing industry to our local food system in as many ways as possible should always be a priority for the Commonwealth. I think we absolutely should explore tax credits or other incentives that will enable both donations or more direct channeling of locally grown foods directly to food pantries. Work with agencies like the Department of Agricultural Resources and the Department of Revenue and farmers in the fishing industry to find ways to expand donations, continue grant programs that incentivize farmers to grow food for food pantries. And I think it'll be important to also engage with the Department of Agricultural Resources, the Department of Public Health, and other agencies to create programming that would provide the opportunity for establishments and food producers to have similar benefits to selling to the open market, but targeted directly to food pantries and other local food organizations in need.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. So now we're going to move on to some other pieces. The next question for 5 years, from 1997 to 2002, the Commonwealth provided state-funded SNAP and TDFDC to immigrants cut off from federal benefits in the wake of the 1996 welfare reform law. However, times have changed. Currently, 1 in 6 Massachusetts residents, or roughly 17%, are foreign-born. Many lawfully present immigrants are barred from federal SNAP program, yet are the essential workers that make up the backbone of our economy. One New Bedford immigrant resident of 20 years said, taking care of 4 children as a single parent, I was reliant on the community for help. I got SNAP, which was a blessing and enabled me to raise my children and work professionally in the community. How will you support state-funded SNAP for Massachusetts immigrants? Mr. Sylvia, let's start with you.
Thank you for that question, Christine. As I mentioned in my opening statement, no one should go hungry. And I think it's important to understand this process with the SNAP supplement. Those who are eligible under SNAP extension are lawfully present immigrants. These benefits do not take away from any citizens of the Commonwealth, including seniors, veterans, or families with children. I understand the funding challenge we face and that there are ongoing conversations right now among legislators and advocates to address this issue, whether through identifying additional funding or through other solutions. We know that the federal government and Congress have fallen down on this issue and that it's been left to the states, social service organizations, and nonprofits to help those lawfully present immigrants in need. As state representative, I will always focus on solutions to address this issue. And some of the information you had provided us in advance, it was very sad to hear that in New Bedford, between 100 to 250 families lost the SNAP supplemental benefit. I think we have to be very creative and have a sense of urgency on how we address hunger in our communities, and that's including finding ways to support the SNAP supplement in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Mr. Pires.
Thank you for this question. This is a serious issue, and I've spoken to so many people in the last 4 or 5 months, and many people in the city of New Bedford, even the outskirts of New Bedford, who are considered to be low income. I had a woman who works for a local medical institution. She pulled me aside and she says, I want you to understand something. And I said, what is it? She says, no matter what facet you are, whether you live in a suburb or a city, we're all going through challenges. I have a similar story to yours. I have a neighbor of mine who's a single parent who has 3 children, who's getting the funding and the support from Massachusetts, but still can't make ends meet, still can't put enough food on the table. And my husband and I are supplementing, helping her. There's a serious problem, and it's not only her, it's widespread. So for me personally, I believe, again, if you're a legal immigrant, if you are someone who resides here, I firmly believe the right to access healthy food is for all. I support the state-funded SNAP benefits for immigrants who reside legally in Massachusetts. My primary focus is ensuring that the residents of the 10th Bristol and the surrounding Southcoast communities have their food security needs met first. By concentrating on our resources effectively, we can provide necessary support to legal immigrants who are internal to the community while maintaining a balanced approach to food security for all residents. If elected, God willing, I would make this a top priority. It impacts everything. Without the proper nourishment, without having food, taking the stress away from families, providing the nutrients that they need to get properly educated, to stay healthy. I think it would also have a profound impact on our healthcare system if people are eating healthy and having access to the food that they need.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. Moving on to the next question. Climate change is impacting our ability to produce enough food to feed people. We have fires and droughts in the West, and most recently, Hurricane Helene and Milton devastating the Southeast. New England Feeding New England reported that we should expect a mass migration of people from these climate change impact areas to move to New England. All these conditions result in a breakdown of food production and supply chains. How would you combat climate change so local fishing, farming, aquaculture industries are supported in building a more resilient food system? Mr. Sylvia, let's start with you.
Thank you very much for this question, Christine. As I've said throughout this campaign and in my career, climate change is real. We need only see what happened recently in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, or even more locally along our coast or with the increasing severe weather events we've experienced. Fortunately, Massachusetts is a leader in our commitment on combating climate change. And as your next state representative, I'll work hard with the Healy-Driscoll administration, as a member of the legislature, and with our 351 cities and towns to implement efforts to ensure we have a more resilient food system and that we protect our citizens and our communities. I'll support the implementation of the Commonwealth's Clean Energy and Climate Plan, which commits to reducing carbon emissions by 50% below 1990 levels in 2030 and net zero in 2050. And whether that's through co-sponsoring legislation or connecting our communities of the 10th Bristol District to state resources that are available, I'll be a constant advocate for our communities on this topic. As it relates to our local food system and climate change, I believe there's a lot we can do. We can expand incentives for buying local, which not only expands our local economy and supports local farming, it also means reducing carbon emissions because more of our food is delivered locally. I'll support land use policies that protect critical open space. I'll continue to, and those that continue to protect agricultural land for food production and carbon sequestration. I'll support implementation of responsible siting requirements that maintain local control and allow for appropriate clean energy development and agricultural expansion, for example, agrivoltaics. And as it relates to the fishing industry, it's important that as offshore wind is developed, the federal government protect critical fishing areas that the Port of New Bedford depends on when making siting decisions. We also fight for the fishing industry to have a seat at the table, and that offshore wind invests more and is more transparent with research and monitoring.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Mr. Pyers.
Hi, thank you. Excellent question. This one here is important. It's been important to me for a long time. As a person who is in an industry that we try to protect customers. We try to make them self-reliant in their own homes in terms of safety. I'm a major component or advocate for being self-reliant even in our food industry. I just heard a current state rep saying to me that we only produce 5 to 10% of all the food that we consume. I believe I would work hard to make that increase to 50%. Wouldn't that be great? We live in a prosperous, very unique area where we can source food from the ocean. We have plenty of farmland. I would do anything to advocate and strengthen our current local food production. We're fortunate that we have plants that process food. We live in a very rich area in that case. I recognize that climate change poses a significant, although I'm not debating climate change, but it does have a threat on food security and sustainability for local farming. I support policies that help farmers adapt to changing conditions, such as providing resources for sustainable farming practices and investing in research on climate resilience. What can we do to avoid the pitfalls? Recent hurricanes, that's another example. We should all be learning from this. How do we become self-reliant and be prepared that if that were to ever happen to us or something happens in another area where it cuts off our food chain, how can we prevail? How can we sustain? Additionally, I advocate for initiatives to reduce the carbon footprint in the food system, such as encouraging local food production and consumption to minimize transportation emissions. I have a partner that always tells me the least amount of hands your food is in, the better the food, the healthier the food. By supporting local farmers in their efforts to adapt innovative, we can strengthen our food system against the impacts of climate change.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. We have 2 more questions remaining. Currently, there is no set standard of regulations for the cottage food laws in the Commonwealth. When farmers and people who make food at home kitchens to sell at farmers markets, direct order to delivery, or online sales, such as jams, breads, tortillas, fruit, empanadas, cookies, churros, coffee beans, pickled vegetables, granola, and other non-temperature regulated foods, they are treated like a food establishment alongside restaurants, catering operations, and food trucks. This means that some municipal departments of health require permits, including a fee and inspections of the kitchens, while others don't. There's no consistency from town to town and therefore no equity in the current system. How would you support farmers and families who want to make a living selling food products as part of the cottage industry? Mr. Pyers, let's begin with you.
Thank you. This hits home again. As a small business owner, there are regulations and policies in place that just makes it much more difficult, not only to start a business, but to stay in business. We have local restaurants all around us that are currently struggling, whether it's paying fees or paying utility cost, paying unexpected cost. If elected, I would do everything I possibly can to maintain and make it easy for these establishments to stay in production. I would wholeheartedly support cottage food industry in the southeastern Massachusetts. This industry not only empowers local entrepreneurs to start small-scale food businesses from their homes, but also strengthen our local economy by offering unique, locally made products. That's another attraction for this area. Diversity. I would advocate for policies that make it easier for cottage food producers to thrive, such as simplifying licensing processes, providing access to resources and training, and encouraging market opportunities. By supporting this industry, we can foster innovation, enhance food diversity, and create economic opportunities within our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. Mr. Sylvia.
Thank you. I'm a big supporter of consistency, and I think it can be achieved in this instance. I think it starts with bringing the necessary stakeholders together, such as farmers and local businesses, organizations like the Massachusetts Municipal Association, Department of Public Health, Department of Agricultural Resources, and others that need to be at the table to build that consistency, which then can be acted on by the legislature. The legislature's done it before with various different commissions, including most recently the Siting Commission, and they can do that again in this case. I think it's important that we empower local farmers and families to do what they do best, which is grow local food and make local food products that bring business to their communities, raise awareness about local farms, and support tourism, and enable the sharing of local food culture.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Now, the last question before we move on to any questions in the chat. According to ReFed, 38% of food is unsold or uneaten. And when food scraps are sent to the landfill, it decomposes and produces methane gas, which is 80% more lethal than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. What strategies would you support to reduce food waste and support composting and food recovery? Mr. Pyers, let's start with you.
Thank you. Again, this is a problem and also a solution. And if we can work together and come up with ideas and innovative ways of before food spoils, before we throw it out, how do we divert that food to where there is a need? As a candidate, I would be committed strongly to addressing the food waste and promoting recovery efforts. Reducing food waste is essential for the environment, sustainability, and food security. I support initiatives that encourage businesses and households to minimize waste through education and incentives. Additionally, I would advocate for strengthening food recovery networks that redirect surplus to those who need it, thus supporting the food banks and community organizations. Implementing a robust composting programs and supporting infrastructure for food waste management can further enhance our efforts. By tackling food waste, we can conserve resources and reduce the environment impact and help ensure more people in our community have access to not only food, but healthy food.
Thank you, Mr. Pyers. Mr. Sylvia.
Yes, thanks for this question. Reducing food waste has multiple benefits, including providing healthy food that would otherwise be discarded to those who need it. It also addresses environmental issues and waste disposal and can provide feedstock for local renewable energy generation. All of these provide healthy benefits for our communities. I think there are a number of ways to reduce food waste and expand composting, either through existing state programs or possibly through future legislation. As state rep, I'll work with the cities and towns and local businesses in the 10th Bristol District to connect them to the resources that are currently available, such as DEP's Sustainable Materials Recovery Program municipal grant, which supports a number of different solutions, including local recycling, composting, and also connect communities to the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center's Commonwealth Organics to Energy program, which supports initiatives such as anaerobic digestion, which was something that I was fortunate to work on when I worked in the Patrick administration back when we were focused on implementation of the Green Communities Act. Beyond what's available at the state level, I will absolutely support programs that expand opportunities for gleaning programs, working with farmers to help them reduce their costs and harvest local healthy foods for use in the community, support educational programs and grants on composting at all levels and in all sectors. I would also encourage a program like the Clean Energy Results Program, which was a program between DEP and DOER when I was at DOER, which that focused on capped landfills and siting solar on capped landfills, and how can you create a process that makes it easier for communities to benefit from those types of solutions. But this one would be focused more on food waste reduction and composting. That brings together the relevant state agencies to break down barriers.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Thank you, candidates, both of you, for answering our questions. And now we'd like to bring Liz back into the fold and look to the chat to see if there are any questions for the candidates.
I think we have one. Are you aware of any services in any of the communities to deal with food waste, local composting? Do either candidate want to tackle that? If not, I think we can have Marissa, who's on here, could probably address that question in the chat log.
Sure, I would defer to the Marion Institute, but I know there are local programs in each of the municipalities, and DEP also supports composting initiatives, but I'll defer to her.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Going to the next question. Given that many students in our school districts rely on school meals as a primary source of nutrition, how do you plan to address the need for improved kitchen facilities and food programs in our schools, especially considering past opposition to additional funding for such improvements? What specific steps will you take to ensure students have access to healthy and sufficient meals? Let's start with Mr. Pyers, and I will give you 2 minutes, and then we'll go to you, Mr. Sylvia.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Great question. And I'm going to be honest with you. Food, access to food should be a non-issue for your average family, children, seniors, veterans. When it comes to children in particularly, they deserve and should have the right to access quality foods, healthy foods. I would support any organization, including schools, that would supply and create the opportunities for people to get access to healthy, and now in particularly local foods. So I would be a strong advocate, and I would totally support that.
Okay, we'll go to you, Mr. Sylvia.
Sure, thank you. I think there are 2 ways to tackle this. One was the question related to how do you upgrade kitchen facilities in schools? And I think that speaks to a broader issue relative to the School Building Assistance Bureau and the need to do some reforms at that level to ensure that school districts can get targeted funding to address kitchen facilities, not just in a single school, which is how it works now, but to provide that opportunity and that funding incentive across multiple kitchens within an entire school district. That's one thing. So reforming SBAB to provide the necessary funding to support school districts. Then, as we talked about earlier, connecting more local food can be done through a number of different things, existing programs that we talked about, but more tax incentive for local growers, and grants for school districts. I agree with Joe that at the end of the day, this all should be fully integrated into our school systems and not have to be incentive or grant-based, but something that every school district across the Commonwealth has the opportunity to purchase more local food for consumption by their students.
Liz, you're on mute.
Thanks. I have too many screens up. Okay, next question is, many people are both food insecure and housing insecure. What can we do to pay people the salary they need to live a quality life? We will go first to you, Mr. Sylvia.
Well, I mean, I think there are a number of things. The first, and it's something that I've talked about, is to raise the minimum wage. I think, as we all know, it's very difficult to survive on $15 an hour. I feel strongly that we should be raising the minimum wage to $20 an hour. I think we have to do more to boost the economies locally so that local businesses can continue to thrive and grow and invest in their employees. And that may mean working with organizations like Mass Development and others to provide grants and other support for local businesses to expand. I also think that it's very important for us as we look at housing issues. The Affordable Homes Act, which was passed this last session, provides a lot of opportunities for municipalities and for individuals to expand affordable housing opportunities and worker housing as well. And so I think it's a combination of some of the resources that have been provided in the Affordable Homes Act, increasing the minimum wage, and working to support growth and expansion of our local economies with organizations like Mass Development.
Thank you. Thank you. And to you, Mr. Pyers.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Mark said, with the exception of minimum wage. Minimum wage is designed for entry level, designed to give people an opportunity to learn how to be functional and responsible in a work environment. I would advocate strongly for providing training, education, and maybe at a lower cost, at a lower rate, to incentivize and give everyone an opportunity to get the skills that they need so that they can grow and become, reach their fullest potential. On the other side, I would really look at some of the regulations and a lot of the red tape that smaller business are being forced on. And that way they can expand and maybe look at ways to, grow their employees into bigger, better positions that actually pay more. So my approach would be, how can we increase the quality of employees in terms of education? How can we lower the cost so that cost of living, cost of doing business is lower, so that people can actually survive and keep their standard of living and quality of life?
Thank you both. Next question in the chat. And again, for anybody that did not see the chat log, if you have a question, you can go ahead and put it into the chat now, and we will get to it eventually. Thank you. Food insecurity often impacts underserved communities the hardest. How do you plan to actively engage with these communities, listen to their concerns, and ensure that their voices are central in shaping solutions to address food insecurity in our district? Let's start with you, Mr. Pyers.
I would champion ideas that would enforce or strengthen sustainability. And as I said earlier, having a food shortage in the United States should not be an issue. And that's why I applaud for helping opening up my eyes even further. It's one thing to say that you don't have access to food. We need to fix that. But more importantly, people should have a choice of having healthy food. And that's why I'm a strong advocate and supportive of local farmers market, buy local, support local. And for me, at the end of the day, to be here in the Southcoast, we really need to make our food production robust and also have it in such a way that if anything interrupts our food chain, that we can sustain and supplement some of the issues that would come out of that. And I'm always a proponent for making sure that we are prepared, our emergency infrastructure is ready to go, so that what's happening in Florida and some parts of the country doesn't happen to us. Thank you.
Yes, in response, I know the question focused primarily on how to engage the underserved communities. And I think the question answers itself in the sense that as state representative, it will be important for me, if I'm elected, to engage with multiple local organizations, from the Marion Institute, which does a lot of good work on this topic, but directly to those underserved communities throughout the 10th Bristol District, of which there are multiple advocacy groups and individual leaders that are working very hard to address this issue. I also think it's really important that we engage with the Agriculture Equity Network. I mentioned it earlier in my comments, because I think there's a lot we can learn from people that are in the trenches every day trying to address these issues. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that a state representative can do, is listen and also be a convener, bring people together so that whatever legislation we file up in Boston, it actually addresses the issue.
Great, thank you. Next question. How do you feel about reducing the acreage requirements for 61A status? Okay, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Sylvia.
Sure. So I'm not exactly sure what the questioner is getting at, other than what I think he's asking, and I apologize, Mr. Duke, if I'm getting it wrong, but I think what you're suggesting, 61A is an agricultural mechanism as it relates to taxes, 61A, 61B, but for agriculture, it allows the farmer to place that land in 61A and not have to pay the taxes they would otherwise have to pay if it wasn't in agricultural use. So I wouldn't object. I think there are smaller farms in the Commonwealth, and I do think that whatever opportunity we can provide to enable local farmers to do their farming, if that means reducing the acreage requirement, I'm certainly open to that. I'd want to dig in a little bit more to understand it, but I think what you're getting at is for smaller farms, could they take advantage of 61A if they're below that acreage threshold? And I am definitely open to exploring that.
Thank you. And go ahead, Mr. Pyers, your response to that.
Again, in alignment with what Mark's answer, I'm not too familiar with that, but I would take a shot at this. And I believe it's a combination of taxes, but also acreage. And I thought it was 5 acres versus 2 acres. But at the end of the day, what it means is it allows someone who doesn't have the property, doesn't have the amount of land to be able to enter this market, to be able to enter the local farmers market and to be able to produce food for the local community. So I would be a strong advocate for allowing business startups. And I've met so many farmers over the course of the last 9 to 10 years. And some of them are just, husband and wife. And if they have 2 acres that they can produce zucchini or produce that they could then offer to their own local community, I would strongly support that and advocate for it.
Great, thank you. Not sure, I just reached out to this next question. Do you know where food pantries are in our district? I'm not sure if that's is that a question for the candidates, or is that a question in general asking where food pantries are? I think asking the candidates if they know where the food pantries are in their district. Go ahead, Mr. Sylvia, you can start.
So there are a number of food pantries throughout the Southcoast, and in particular in the greater New Bedford area. What comes to mind is MO Life, as well as Grace, Damien's Pantry in Wareham. So there are a number of different food pantries across the Southcoast that serve our local community.
Would you like to comment, Mr. Pyers?
Yes, and I've actually been to a few, and one in particular in Fall River. When I did some research over the last few days, I found websites within our own region, websites in Rhode Island, between food pantries, between farmers markets. And this is the education, and it's not the fact that people don't know, they're just not made aware of. And for me, as a local resident, it's wonderful to be able to access local food. And again, I would advocate for more awareness, and your organization does a great job. Unfortunately, it took this forum to have me take even a closer look and appreciate all the work that you're doing. So I'm really excited moving forward and looking more into all of the possibilities. And it's not just Massachusetts. Like I said, just over the border, there are plenty of different opportunities for getting all different types of food, healthy food, produce. Walking into supermarkets, and God bless our markets, but the produce that's there, I mean, there's nothing wrong with food from out of state, but again, why not tap into the resources that are right here under our feet first? And so, yeah, I applaud all the work and a lot of this work is done voluntarily. So I applaud all the work that people are doing and bringing and helping community members, especially during these trying times.
Thank you. Okay, another question. Farmers markets can be valuable, but they are often inaccessible to underserved communities due to location and costs. What specific strategies do you propose to make fresh, affordable food from farmers markets more accessible to residents in food deserts? And how will you address the affordability challenges these communities face? We're going to begin with you, Mr. Pyers.
Yeah, I thought about this earlier, and I would work a partnership. We have many great local restaurants, And I think there's a sense of pride when you can say that, items on your menu or what you're offering is, derived from a local farmers market. Work up partnerships and maybe get involved with the state that there's incentive or tax breaks or however to make it affordable, to make it so that restaurants are buying into this concept of supporting local. And when they do that, it creates a demand. It creates a demand so that these local farmers can be, sustaining in their own business. The other side is work it in with our school systems. And I know we can't, fill the entire need of what we need in terms of food, but we can supplement. And that to me is a great partnership where we can, take advantage of our local efforts in terms of food production, but yet also satisfy the needs of restaurants and businesses who need to supply food to our communities.
Thank you. And let me just go there. Mr. Sylvie, your response?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts here. I mean, the issue of food deserts is real. There are a lot of people that are far from farmers markets, grocery stores, and other available food. I think there are a number of things. First, we need to make sure that the benefits that are provided through SNAP and HIP are aligned with the ability to use those benefits at farmers markets. I also think technology can play a really important role in providing access to farmers markets. So there are things like the mobile farmers market concept. I also think that delivery and transportation to designated locations where you can take farmers market produce and bring it to designated areas that are more accessible to people who are otherwise in food deserts. And I think providing incentives to expand the farmers market network. We have a number of different farmers markets, and when we talk about collaboration between those farmers markets and identifying where these food deserts are and how those farmers markets can work together to meet the needs of people that live there. I think there are a number of things we can be very creative with to address this issue.
Thank you. I am seeing no further questions in the chat log. This is call out for last questions. Okay, we want to give 2 minutes to each of you to just formulate your final responses, and then I think maybe we will call it good. Okay, we will start with you, Mr. Pyers.
I want to say thank you for not only having this forum, but bringing light to a major issue and challenge. And learning and knowing and being part of this forum has reinforced the need for helping people thrive, for helping people meet their obligations, and more importantly, helping people stay healthy and feed their families. No one in this country, and particularly in the Southcoast area, should have to stress about worrying where their next meal is coming from. And more importantly, no one as a parent should have to worry about where their child's next meal is coming from, whether they're eating healthy or not. No one should be going hungry, as Mark said earlier. This is a very, very important issue. And for me personally, I've had people who could have eaten better or healthier and may have been a deciding factor on getting sick or not. I think always in the mindset of being proactive in choosing the right foods and having opportunities within our South Coast is so important. My efforts are centered on the shared commitment and to the resilient and equitable food system. I'm dedicated to addressing inequalities by supporting initiatives like the healthy incentive programs and Farm to School, which enhance access to nutritious food and foster food literacy. By incentivizing donations, supporting the cottage food industry, we can strengthen our local economy and reduce food insecurity. I'm also committed on tackling climate change and preparing, more importantly, preparing for emergencies that protect our communities against future challenges. I feel as though together we can build a sustainable future where every resident of the 10th Bristol District and the South Coast have access to healthy, affordable food. thank you for your engagement tonight. This has been a great experience. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. And go ahead, Mr. Sylvia.
Yeah, thank you. I'll end where I started, which is first to thank the Marion Institute for hosting this forum, and for the work that you do in our overall effort to end food insecurity in our region. This is one issue that both Joe and I agree on, which is no one should go hungry. I think we started with that and we should end with that. No one should go hungry. And as a community of people in this district, whether we have the good fortune of being elected officials, appointed officials, nonprofits, community groups, the only way that we address this is to do it together. I look forward to focusing on this issue if I'm elected state representative for the 10th Bristol District. I think this is an issue that should be front and center for all of us. It should be a priority for all of us. And certainly as state representative, it'll be something that will be very important for me to focus on. I think collaborating with different groups and organizations, bringing people together to tackle these issues, focusing on those policies and incentives that will help to support our vision for the future of this area, all can be done so long as we work together and we're all focused on it together.
Excellent. Thank you both candidates, Mr. Pires, Mr. Sylvia. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Christine, for leading us through the question period. This has been live streamed to Facebook and we have recorded it and we will be sharing it out on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Christine just posted where to go to vote in case you're not sure where you need to go to vote, and we'll see you all out there on November 5th. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
everyone.
You.
Take care.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.